So what this is, first of all, we're going to start doing it this way. We're gonna just go live when we record our slate breakdown. So if anybody has some questions, feel free to kind of put it in there. And I guess that's pretty much it. So yesterday, for those that weren't paying attention, about 24 hours ago, from at this moment, we did a early slate preview, and we were basically saying, okay, it's kind of boring. You got to just play 4 or 5 of the Pistons, run it back with LaMelo, and then what else are we going to do? Well, you can either play like Tatum or Randall as the other two with correlation. And then Bobby was saying, maybe you should play Butler. And Butler, listen, it's probably not going to be low owned. People are going to play him anyway. But why don't we maybe Butler with Embiid? And I said, that could be low owned. Saying, nah, that's going to be owned too. But let's just see. And then we saw that you could make the exact same 2x2 and play instead of Randall and whatever his name is, Randall and Tatum. You could play Butler and Embiid in the exact same lineup. Leave zero money on the table and just be done with it. So I was showing people, so this is like really easy. You can just do this, but whatever.
Which I had already built the exact lineup you were talking about.
So wait. So then later on, Bobby posted up on the site. This is like his early build. Posted that exact lineup like on the build. Okay. Then we went at 6 o'clock and we did a live before lock. And we're like, I'd love to have the stuff to talk about, but nothing really has changed that much. I mean, we could start trying to come up with other stuff, but I don't know. It's just kind of boring. I mean, I guess this is what we're going to do, whatever it is. And then we're just waiting for late news to come in, which never came, right? And so then I'm watching, and I'm like, I played some similar stuff to Bobby. Not that in the 555. I went the other route. I went the Tatum route. And then I'm watching, and then I see LaMelo is like stuck on 33 fantasy points for a while. And I'm like, what's going on here? And I guess he had gotten hurt. I'm like, all right, well, so much for that, right? And so I saw that Bobby was like in first, tied for first, like pretty much starting at 7:35 p.m. I mean, literally from the moment it started. I'm like, okay, so he's got 314 points. He's going to obviously get swallowed up by the rest of the field. But it's nice to see. It's nice to see him in front, whatever, especially with LaMelo now out. You know what I mean? Like there's obviously a whole – and it just never came. Like the swarm and the swamp just never came. And then like towards the end, I was saying, okay, you know what? Brandon Ingram's got like 1 million points, and he's going to come in the fourth quarter, and he'll probably get there for me in the fadeaway maybe, but he'll end up like screwing Bobby out of whatever, and I'm just waiting for it to happen. And then like down the stretch, you see Ingram miss, Ingram turnover. I'm like, how about that? And it just Bobby he chopped with 2 other people and totally held. So listen, we don't like to. I hate to be that group that says, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. We're so great because we told you this, because we never do this. But in this particular case, literally told you exactly what to do. Yeah. What we were doing, did it, and it won. You know what I mean? Like that's it doesn't get any better than that. So I hope that everybody at least piled on a little bit. And that was pretty much it. And I will say also that it was amazing to me that on a 3-4 game slate, even though whatever, Butler was like 0% owned. I mean, honestly, he was 5% in the 555, 7% in the fadeaway or something. I mean, how many guys were even available to play that he would only be 7% owned? Nonetheless, good for 5%, Bobby.
5% in the 555, actually, yeah. So
that's what I said. That's what I said. And so as I said, I call this springboard day. I know. Listen, it's been no secret. Bobby's been struggling a little bit, So we'll take anything with him, right? But a good 5-figure thing in a difficult tournament, which is good. And now we springboard into the 250K or the 100,000 for tonight in a 10-game slate. So we're ready for that.
I'm ready for it. I appreciate it. It was nice to get a win, and when I never thought it was any way it could hold to after the LaMelo injury, I was like, oh, F this, I'm dead. I'm completely dead. I was also posting in the wrong Discord in the Better Takes. But guys, please do like and subscribe, and we're going to be doing these videos like this. We're gonna go live, but we'll also release it as the video for the first look. But it'll give you guys a chance to pop in and ask questions as we go along. And we don't necessarily expect a ton of people in the room while we're going live because we're doing it in the morning. But we do, you can watch it after. And I think we thought this was a nice way to stay more engaging. So wanted to give you a heads up for that. And yeah, I'm ready to get after it. I mean, it's been a good few days. I had a good Friday in the NBA, a good Thursday in the NBA on the first night back. I had a good golf weekend, so I'm starting to turn things around. I feel like we're going in the right direction.
Yeah. So, and again, eventually we'll get Bobby's face back on here. Once we feel comfortable showing it again.
Yeah. My eyes are literally just, I mean, they're swollen and red. And it's just, for those of you who haven't kept track, it's been kind of storm season and it's snow all over the place in California, and which is really weird. My family's house in Santa Barbara, everybody was just like covered in snow. It finally has let up a little bit, but the weather change is just messing with me. So I've got to meet with my allergist and get some medicine to calm the eyes down. But with that said, we're ready to jump into the big slate.
So wait, so water drop, like the background looks terrible. Yeah, I don't blame you, man. We gotta beef this up a little bit. I gotta get someone to help and make this all look just a little nicer. But but it's like I said, listen, with my every once in a while people complain that are investors in my hedge fund that like my monthly reports aren't as fancy as like some of the others, or sometimes like things I mess up like administratively. I'm like, if you want, you can get worse performance, and I'll get you a much slicker website if you'd like that. Then okay, I get it. So you'll have to deal with the bad background on the day after Bobby literally gives you the winning lineup 8 hours ahead of time. So, but we are looking to make this a little more user friendly and a little nicer. Well, user friendly. You guys don't have to do anything; just sit there and listen. Yeah. But feel free to chat and give us your opinions and give us your whatever. All right. So what do we got today? We got 10 games.
It's 30 lock time.
Yes.
Which is weird for 10-game slate. So just keep that in mind, everybody. And there's a lot of guys who are out tonight, so there's already some value that stands out, and we're going to get into it from pretty much the early game. There
is right now the top rated value play. We'll get to him. Is a guy I literally didn't think played anymore. I mean, he was like an incredible prospect. He was one of my favorite players in college, and I thought he was really going to be like something in the NBA. And it's just injuries just kind of like got the best of him for a while. And then it turns out maybe he wasn't really very good offensively. So it's kind of hard to survive without being really good offensively. But he's been gone for a while. I didn't even know he still played. But we'll get to him in a little bit. I guess we should just start by going game by game and talk about.
Yeah, let's go game by game. Let's jump into it. And guys, if you are, for those of you who are tuning in, feel free to pop in questions along the way. We'll peek in and try and address that. All right. So the first game you've got is Chicago-Toronto, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this feels like a game where, like, look, the DeRozan price is always appealing, and the fact that Chicago plays good teams. Now, I don't know what we even call Toronto a good team anymore. But DeRozan, when they tend to need him, is, at 7,700, I think that's definitely a guy who is on my list as a potential maybe get different guy on this slate. And then you've got the wild card on the other side of the Podol situation. I really like the upside is too high for me to like ignore. It's not like a guy you need to play or anything. He's 6,100. But I mean, it's not like he's even like killing you with the games where he's not really getting there. And the minutes aren't like, he's not playing a ton of minutes. He had the one game with 36, but he put up 34 and 31, 38 his last two games. Before that, 56 and 57 against a Bulls team that can't defend the inside. I have to have a little bit of interest in him here. So I think Podol is actually in play for me. And so is DeRozan, but nobody who rates to be a priority from this game.
Well, I'm incredibly prepared. I don't have a single guy from Toronto projected. So tell me what's going on with Podol? Why is he's popping as a good play?
He's been since they got him, he's averaging basically 45 fantasy points a game, and no one's going to play him.
There he is.
So I guess he's not 45 because he had the one game with them. Yeah, they barely played in the first two games, and then when they've been starting him, and he's playing he's played 36, 30, 26, and 27 minutes, and 34, 38, 56, and 57 against a team that struggles on the inside at low ownership. I'm definitely going to have a little bit of interest, and now there's going to be other guys who come along later that make it look like a much worse play, but I'm playing multiple lineups today, so I'm definitely considering Podol.
Now, correct me if my information is inaccurate, but did DeMar DeRozan play in Toronto at some point?
Yeah, and DeRozan, for what it's worth, is like a little bit of a vengeful guy. We had when they had the Kawhi, the Toronto, after the trade, the San Antonio games and everything. DeRozan went nuts in all those games. So I actually think that there is a real case to be made for DeRozan here today.
Yeah, projection-wise, nothing's really showing up for me in this game. I'll give Toronto, I'll give DeRozan kind of a fun narrative approach, fun narrative play.
We can give him the Jimmy Butler treatment from last night, going back to
Exactly.
Philly. And
Exactly.
these are guys where it matters. So I think it's worth it.
Not only that, but Butler actually was kind of invisible in the fourth quarter.
He didn't really do much in the fourth quarter. It wasn't like he had an outlier scoring night or anything. He just had the ball in his hands and controlled the game.
He had one ridiculous finish though down the stretch.
That
I
was
don't know what
that was nuts.
But so overall, I think this game is probably
it's not one of the more interesting ones. But I do think that you're going to get a very low on DeRozan and a very low on Podol. I think is a nice little 1v1 there. All right. Next up, we have my Lakers. Not my Lakers, but the Lakers.
Let's talk about this for a second. What about Jared Vanderbilt, huh?
I love Jared Vanderbilt. I like Vanderbilt and Beasley, and they make more sense piece wise. But the whole and actually they didn't do as bad with the draft pick as they could have. I'm a Vanderbilt guy. They actually have competent role guys now, which they didn't have the first part of the season. Basically,
I kind of like these guys on the Lakers.
Yeah, me too. I've always had a little bit of soft spot. They're not guys you necessarily like want to rely on to score every night, but I mean, like, because Beasley's streaky, Vanderbilt is he's not much of a shooter, but he does everything else. Even Rui is a very solid number 7 or 8 man on your team. I just don't think you want him like as one of your best 5. But the Lakers are going to be where you get the value, and to be honest, I think it's going to be very, very short. Like I think by the time the next slate plays, these guys will all be 1,000 at least more than they are right now, because LeBron is probably going to be out for a while. So I like the Vanderbilt, Hachimura, Beasley. Hard not to like all 3 of them. I have Vanderbilt number 1, Beasley number 2, Hachimura number 3, but they're all very close. And I think Schroeder deserves some consideration as well. And of course, AD, if the game stays close, you're going to want some exposure there. He seems almost like he's under projected a little bit, but I love the idea of playing 2 or 3 of these guys. The problem is, you have the really cheap price on Dillon Brooks, which we know why it's that cheap. Nobody on the other side really stands out as being a great play on their own. But if you wanted to run back, Ja is 10-1 now. Jaren Jackson at 7,700, I think, is reasonable. I don't think I would get to Bane, but I think all of these guys in a game stack certainly make some sense. If you wanted to play a Ja with Davis and the other 3 Lakers, I think that's probably my favorite way of doing it. But I do think Jaren Jackson has tremendous upside in this one as well.
Yeah, I didn't really quite get to the Dillon Brooks.
I'm not going to get to it either. Just he projects well.
Yeah, I suppose. Maybe I just don't have it updated quite. Yeah, I'm okay, I guess. I like the idea of playing AD and Beasley and Vanderbilt, running it back with Ja, like you said. It's a big slate though. So it's not as easy to like play like 100 guys to stack this one game like that. But I like it right off the bat. I mean, it's Davis without LeBron could probably do some good stuff, and I don't know. I kind of like the way I'm building this right off the bat here. So we're gonna try to give this out like 8 hours ahead of time again. So we'll do Vanderbilt, Beasley, Davis, run back with Ja. We'll throw in Durant narrative. I mean, not Durant narrative, DeRozan narrative. And just kind of start off the card with a couple of plays. We'll see how it develops, of course, over the next half hour.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I will say though, if you're playing like the 150 or you're playing a ton of lineups in the smaller stuff, I think it's worth speculating on all these other Lakers who aren't going to project as well. I mentioned Schroeder as one of them. Rui, I think, will project well, so people will be on him. But getting exposure to Reeves, even, I just think that there's a lot of different ways that this could break for them in minutes wise. I don't think it's like going to be all the starters are going to play like 35 minutes, and even a guy like Troy Brown, I don't know if he's going to play 16 minutes or 35. We've seen him play like 35 when LeBron's been out before, so it's just kind of tricky. So keep an eye out for the starting lineup, which we will have before lock because it is one of the first games. So at least we'll have that. All right. Next up, Washington, Atlanta.
Yeah.
Why don't you start this one off?
Washington, Atlanta. Bradley Beal at 7,600 looks pretty reasonable. Kuzma at 7,800 looks pretty reasonable. And then you'll have Daniel Gafford, who's good value again at 4,500. So all three of those guys rate well for Washington. I'm not really getting too much on the other side. I think Trey is like below like some other guys. So I'm probably not going to get there. So I don't know. I mean, overall, that's what I like Beal, Gafford, Kuzma. No, I think none of those are like straight up priorities. I guess the closest thing is maybe Gafford, just because of the value, whatever. But I like all those guys. Beal, once again, Beal, Kuzma. I wouldn't play them together, but Beal, Kuzma, and Gafford.
Yeah, I actually don't mind Beal and Kuzma together, even if you wanted to. I'm not trying to do it. I have a Kuzma's tiny bit ahead of Beal. I think that Denny Avdia is getting overlooked. I think there's a lot of guys in play in this game. I'd like to see who's starting. DeLon Wright is another one who, all these guys should tick up, but the problem is how much so without Porzingis. So maybe the best thing is Gafford, and I think one of Beal or Kuzma are probably my favorites, but I'm probably going to take some looks at Avdia as well. Anything for you on the Atlanta side?
I didn't really get anything on Atlanta. I mean, I guess, what's his name? Murray's cheap enough, I suppose, at 7,900, but I don't know, not too much. Who do you like more between Kuzma? I mean, just random, Kuzma or DeRozan?
I like Kuzma as the more logical play. It makes sense, but DeRozan, I think that I'll take the narrative and the low ownership. I think Kuzma's going to have some ownership tonight.
Okay.
And for what it's worth, I do think Trey is definitely in play here. And I know that we're naming a lot of names. It's a tough slate. There's a lot of good plays here. John Collins coming back at 4,700. I'm probably going to avoid, but always a little bit scary. I do think Trey, though, 50 fantasy points in both games so far without the new coach. Good matchup against Washington. I could see Trey making some sense here. But I'm not like prioritizing anybody on the Atlanta side as of right now. All right. Next up, we have Milwaukee and Brooklyn. Sheets, I think Giannis will play today. That's at least what I'm looking at as of right now. He's probable. I'm a little surprised, I guess. Not surprised, but I thought there was a chance he may be sitting. Which basically leaves me with kind of nothing really from this game. I think Cam Thomas is the wild card tournament play, but and I think Dinwiddie's okay, but I don't feel like I love anything here. Are you finding much?
Yeah, I'm passing. I don't think Giannis is as good as some of the bigger spend ups we're going to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And when Giannis plays, I don't like anybody else in Milwaukee in general. Yep. And then on Brooklyn, just nobody's really showing up as a great play today, so I'm probably off of this game.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take some shots on Cam Thomas in some lineups, but that's basically it for me, I think. Yep. All right, moving on to what do we have? What's your first for the 8:00 games? We've got I
got Sacramento, OKC.
Sacramento, OKC. All right, Why don't you start us off here, because they're trying to do that thing where they tempt us with Harrison Barnes again, and I'm not gonna fall for it.
Yeah, so I priced these guys up a little bit. Isaiah Joe's up to 4,400. Dort a little bit up to 5K. Jalen Williams is still at 3,900. So all those guys are kind of like okay values from OKC. I have them rated below the two Laker guys and some other guys we're going to get to, but they still look pretty decent. I would imagine that Giddey would be a good play. I mean, it's a fast-paced matchup, and he's there's no Shea, and he's only 7,500. But he's not really showing up to be that great. Again, it's another 7,500. So 7,500 between him, Kuzma, DeRozan, Beal. Who do you like more, Beal or Giddey? I have Beal rated higher by it's not that big of a deal, but I couldn't imagine why though. I mean, it's a fast matchup. I don't know. I think Giddey might be a good play here. On Sacramento, I think it's the same this is the same game that they played the other day. You know, where I stacked up all these Isaiah Joes, and I ran it back with Sabonis. I can't imagine not doing the same thing. It just makes too much sense. What I did was I played all those OKCs, ran it back with Sabonis. I also ran some back with Fox, and I think actually Fox was the one who ended up smashing the other day. And I could see doing the same thing. Now I do see that Fox is questionable here. So, boy, oh boy, if he's out, and well, fortunately we'll get that news on the earlier side. Then we have to see, well, whoever would show up. First of all, Sabonis would be a good play, but whoever would start at point guard, we'd have to consider that. I don't know. This seems like a game we're supposed to play.
Yeah, big total, fast pace. I'll definitely take the Isaiah Joe chances again today. I think Giddey is, well, I'll say whatever with the projections. You know what I mean? It's just it does feel like maybe not playing Giddey and Joe together, but this is the kind of matchup where I actually think I'd be okay doing that. And remember, one of the games without Shea, Giddey had a terrible game against Phoenix, but also only played 24 minutes on the back-to-back. So kind of throwing that one out. But he didn't do well against the Sacramento team the other day either. And it's partly because Isaiah Joe has the ball in his hands a lot when he plays. And his usage, the last games are, 28% usage rate last time. It's kind of hard for Giddey to have a 30% usage, 30+% usage rate when.
Well, in fairness, let me just remind everybody what happened in that game, because I was paying close attention to it. So they started Isaiah Joe, and he was god awful in the first half, and they actually benched him to start the second half.
Yeah, they do weird
and then they brought him in, and then he ended up, got his act together, and then he smashed in the end. But be careful. I don't know. I think okay. I mean, all these OKC guys, it's like, and it scared me for a little bit. When they didn't bring him in to start. I thought he'd be benched like the whole second half, but I mean, I guess you can't do that.
That's what OKC does. Just has not. I honestly don't think it even has that much to do with Joe. It's a very weird thing that they do. I don't understand it. Anybody not named Giddey, Jalen Williams, or Jalen, not no Y Williams, and Shea, they tend to do that, and it just is really weird. But yes, there is a range of outcomes with Isaiah Joe, but he can put up like 40 fantasy points. Mm-hmm. I actually think if he's not starting, no one's going to play him today, and I'm curious to see if they do start him. So yeah, I think they will. But I kind of like the sneaky play if he's not starting. If he does start, obviously you feel a little bit safer with the play. But I think Isaiah Joe and Giddey are the two that stand out the most. I do like Jalen Williams a little bit as well, and Lou Dort a little bit. And I guess you play this game and mix these guys, but my favorite are the guards. Sabonis is my favorite play on the other side, and my second favorite play is actually Keegan Murray. I know it's really interesting. Barnes projects better, but I just want people to keep an eye on. And Keegan Murray is going to have a range of outcomes. He's a rookie, but since the All-Star break, when he got a little bit of a rest, he's looked rejuvenated a little bit to me since then. And he played 42 minutes, and obviously that was the overtime game or whatever, the double overtime game. But he played 31 minutes the last time out against OKC, put up 38 fantasy points. He's been much more aggressive in terms of shooting the ball. He had a 20% usage rate, which I believe was like his second highest of the season in the last game. So getting a little exposure to Keegan Murray as a sort of a weird play in a game stack, I think is an interesting route to go. Not a priority. The priorities are Sabonis, Giddey, and Joe for me here. Maybe Jalen Williams and Dort you could argue for as well. But I think that's what you're looking at. And you're going to have a big list of players to whittle down today. So I don't want to overwhelm you with all these plays, but I do want to, give an accurate first look, because there are a lot of guys who are viable. And it's always scary to play the OKC guys because you never know what kind of minutes thing they're going to do with any of them outside of Giddey. All right, Denver and Houston. Sheets, what do you think here? What is the plan in terms of what we're doing with this game? Because this feels like another game we could have a lot of interest in, but nobody who individually stands out in like a crazy way for me.
Yeah, I mean, we'll start with Jokic, right? So, I think Jokic looks like one of the ones you have to consider between him and Luka. I mean, I have those two very, very close. So I think the risk is that, among other things, that it's an 11-point spread. So you might not get the full 4 quarters out of it. What's weird is I was expecting to see a little more projection love for some of these Houston guys.
Yeah, it's just not there, huh?
It's just not showing right now. I guess because they're all back, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's why. So if Kevin Porter Jr., he's now questionable who he might play. So if that's the case, yeah, maybe these guys are all just a little bit too expensive. So Jokic, that's pretty much it for me. Like Jokic, if I play him, right, it's either going to be him or if I spend up, it's going to be him, probably him or Luka. We'll get to Lillard too in a minute. So yeah, Jokic is definitely in play, but the 11-point spread bothers me a little bit. But you know what? If Houston does get all these guys back, I mean, maybe this game, maybe that spread's a little high. I don't know. Maybe Houston can hang in there, and which means that Jokic might get the full 36 minutes or something. Mm-hmm. He's certainly in play, but I don't like anything else in this game, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, and I think Murray's going to play tonight, but if Murray doesn't play for whatever reason, I think you definitely want to get some Jokic. Like I have Jokic already as one of the best spend ups, even with Murray, but he does produce less with Murray on the court a little bit. You know what I mean? It's a little easier to play him without Murray, but it's not anything. I'm not going to shy away from it in a great matchup. So I think the priorities in this game is Jokic. I do think that like getting, if you're multi-entering a lot of things, getting some Michael Porter Jr. makes some sense. And I think that getting some Jalen Green makes some sense, but I don't know how many minutes he's going to play. And if for some reason they announce that he's out again, then we can go back to the Houston guys. As of right now, I don't see them being as viable. I really like Tari Eason because I think he's a really good basketball player, and I think he's going to be a big part of their future. But the minutes just aren't there consistent enough for me to want to play him on this big of a slate.
I'll say this, by the way, just a real total long shot play. I mean, Bones Highland is flat 3K. He was, I think he was held out of the game because I think it was probably pre-trade or something like that. And they gave him they benched him completely for a game. Then they played 15 minutes.
Who are you talking about? Bones Highland.
Oh, he's on the Clippers now? I didn't know that. So funny.
Yeah, he's on the Clippers.
Why they have him still listed on, because I'm sorry,
no, it happens.
My hallucination. So they did get rid of him. That's what I
mean. Yeah. He's on the Clippers before the Clippers. The Clippers did some really weird stuff.
No, you're good. So as I was saying, just Jokic and nobody else.
Yeah, I would have been on the boat. Watch now, Sheets. You put it out there, and he's going to put up like 40 for the Clippers tonight.
Yeah, we'll remember. I will remember to play one of them. All right. So speaking of spend ups, I mean, it's between Jokic and Luka, probably, and Dallas' spread's a little closer, so maybe it's a little more likely that that Luka gets the full run. The good thing about it is, it's kind of the bad thing about it is that they're all going to be like 10% owned, between Lillard and Jokic and Luka and Davis, like Sabonis, like all, and Giannis will probably be like 5-6% owned or something like that. Yeah. So you can play all these guys without getting too much ownership, but there's a reason for that because you're competing with all these other guys, right? So I do like Luka. Just doesn't seem like a lot of other value here. I mean, you like anything else in this game except for Luka?
Not especially. Like I don't know. I don't think we need the value of Nembhard at 3,400 necessarily. I think Halliburton is always an interesting tournament play against a team that doesn't play defense. Miles Turner, this could be a big game for him. There's a lot of guys who are like maybes for me, but nobody who I feel like I really am like trying to desperately play. Neesmith is a wild card play at best. I do think Luka is a fine, but I just want to say like it is a good matchup for him. Just in terms of the team that'll play fast, but like it's hard. It's just hard for me with he and Kyrie. We haven't seen the real Luka explosion game since that happened. Feels maybe more like maybe Jokic might be the better spend up tonight, but and then maybe the answer is maybe neither of them. But I do think that obviously Luka is going to grade out well, but I don't think that it's not like I don't think he can't still put up 85 fantasy points. I just think that. It's obviously it looks much less likely with Kyrie out there. We haven't seen I think 64 has been as high with Kyrie out there. So just that's my only bit of concern. Nobody else really does it for me in this in this game. But I again, everybody on the Indiana side rates as like okay enough if you wanted to get some sort of a stack in a fast-paced game. But I'm personally not all that into it.
So I alluded to him before. And so Chris Dunn was picked up by Utah after the All-Star break. 10-day contract. And, put up 17 minutes in one game, 23 in another game. And boy, oh boy, 40 fantasy points in his second game since, I don't know, he retired or whatever he was doing or was out of the league. Well, you know what? With no Jordan Clarkson and no Colin Sexton, listen, good for Chris Dunn getting a shot. So you have him and Taylor Horton Tucker as showing up as to be two of the premier values, and I kind of want to root for Chris Dunn, so I sort of want to play him. One thing, by the way, about the Taylor Horton Tucker, and again we dealt with this when we were doing the live sweat. You remember, they took him out at the end when they needed offense,
which is weird. He's their offensive guy. Like it's
I don't know what to make of that, but.
Yeah.
So, with all these guys out, I mean, like Olynyk, he shows up as a good play as well. It's not exactly the same position, but he shows up as a good play. So I think that those are the two main values on the slate, honestly, are Chris Dunn and Taylor Horton Tucker and Olynyk.
Yep. I think that's right. Those are the obvious ones. Even at the elevated price, there's a part of me that wants to just get on this Walker Kessler thing. You look at this guy's he's the best shot blocker in the NBA.
Like, oh yeah.
It's so crazy because if they did that trade again, there's no way they would trade Gobert for Kessler straight up. And now they traded their whole future for this fucking guy, for Gobert and him, and they traded Mark. And I mean, just come on, or they ended up getting Mark, but they traded it's just such a weird. The whole thing is so weird to me. Utah definitely won that trade. I do think we didn't mention Markkanen because the price is a little bit up there, but I think he's in play too at 9,400 without these other guys. I don't know what to do with Chris Dunn, a guy who I was really high on him. I thought he was going to be a really good NBA player. And the weirdest part is even going back to a couple years ago when he was playing regularly, watching him he still looked like a good player, more of a defensive specialist. Kind of weird to see him with a high usage rate, but I guess they need that right now in Utah. I do think Horton Tucker, Olynyk are the two most obvious ones. And then just beneath them, I have Chris Dunn. I'm not writing off the Walker Kessler thing either. I think there is a ceiling and it's a great matchup. At the same time, I don't really love any of the run backs on San Antonio today. I think Sohan is this guy's just going to be a superstar. He just happens to be 19 years old. I always worth taking shots on, but probably not going to do it today. Everybody rates to be just okay for me outside on San Antonio, which is totally fine by me because playing any San Antonio chalky guys never works out well for me anyway. If Trey Jones does play and is fully a go, I think I would consider some Trey Jones. If he's not, I would consider some Keldon Johnson, but nothing that really crazy stands out for me on San Antonio. I do like those three Utah guys though. All right. You the Clippers or the Golden State game first?
I have the Clipper game first.
Okay. So let's talk about that one. Why don't you jump into that one? Because I don't know what to do here.
Well, again, we have to, as usual. Well, I was going to say monitor Gobert. It does say he's probable, but he kind of got ruled out at the end his last game, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, before I forget, I don't know if he did it again, but just in case they didn't change it, check and see what on FanDuel. Go back to the Sacramento guy. What the Me Too guy is, because they probably had him at $410 the other day.
They corrected on FanDuel.
Yeah,
I'll double check it.
So I imagine they corrected it, but just double check that.
Yeah, it looks like he is. Yeah.
Well, what was interesting, again, we talked about this is I remember it because he was a very interesting decision on FanDuel, but then when Gobert got ruled out, the Naz Reid just became a lock. So it was anyway. Minnesota, not really getting to much here. If anything, where is Edwards on my list? He's like way down the list for me, so probably not going to get there. I guess the only guy I would play on the Clippers is Bones Highland. No, not really getting much of anything in this game. If you want to know the truth.
Yeah, a bunch of like man kind of things for me. I don't really have anybody. Never have a problem with playing Edwards. The price is a little bit high, and they do have Conley there now and all that. Jaden McDaniels' price is reasonable, but not a high ceiling. So, I mean, look, Naz Reid. I believe Naz Reid actually has been a part of the winning lineups back-to-back times because somebody played him with Gobert in that Charlotte game, and he in 17 minutes he put up 33 fantasy points, and he ended up winning the tournament for somebody. Always interested in taking a little shot, especially because it's a later game, and Gobert is probable for what it's worth. So you're gonna assume he plays right now. I'm gonna go back to what I always keep saying. I like Paul George here. I think the price is reasonable. I think that at home he plays really well. Paul George and Russell Westbrook would be my highest level of interest here, and I have no problem with Kawhi, but nobody who's a priority, with the potential exception of I may land up on some George.
And the last game of the night, you have Lillard coming right back, off of a 1 billion point performance. He's 1 billion points every night. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to tell you. I'll start with Golden State, because I really don't have much on Golden State. They snuck in a Draymond withdraw a few games ago, which I wasn't prepared for. Just gotta be on the lookout for that kind of thing. And Kuminga Kuminga might be an okay play anyway, but I'm not really getting it too much on the Golden State side of this. DiVincenzo 5,400, I guess, is sort of reasonable. On Portland, I mean, I hate to say that it's the same speech as always. You know, Lillard projects really close to Luka and Jokic, but it's just a different way of getting there. And I just prefer the I guess the floor. I guess the best way I could just say it of the other two guys. And with that said, Lillard's got freaking 80, 90 point upside, like I guess every freaking night. So I don't know what to tell you. Now he is on the road. And he does, listen, without me even looking, just my eye test is like I'm a little more afraid of him at home.
Can I point out though where he plays best of anywhere in the world?
Oh no,
he's better this is an Oakland kid. This is a kid who grew up with the Warriors. He goes and he takes it to them every time. Not to mention that he always hated the Steph narrative about how much everybody talked about Steph, nobody talked about him. I mean, I actually think that it's going to be like I do think Lillard is definitely totally in play, and unfortunately he's going to be owned too, but. You look at these points he scored, 71, 39, 40, 38. These are real points. 38, 33, 28, 40, 29, 42, 42, 30, 60. Like those are real life points he's scoring, and that's consistent enough. I'm willing to go with it. His usage rate is like beyond Westbrook. I mean, he had a 53% usage rate in the last game. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. It's almost impossible to do, actually. But when you have 71 points and 6 assists, I guess that's how you do it. But he didn't get any steals or blocks, so he couldn't get to 100. Come on, man. No, I'm just kidding. Lillard is one of the guys who is definitely in play for me. I see him showing up for this one. I think when any game he plays the rest of the season, you're going to see him really trying to take over, especially as long as Simons is out and you have these low usage guys. What I do kind of like here is, and maybe it's partly because the later thing, I actually think Thibault is, I hate like that kind of value on this slate. But the minutes, I mean, he played 35 minutes in the last game. You have a team that has all these wings that you have to guard. You think Thibault might play 35 minutes again. Like in 35 minutes, even if you're a low point per minute guy, you're just going to get to 20 something almost by accident. So I'm okay with like taking a shot on Thibault. I don't know. It doesn't feel great, but it's more like a placeholder thing so we can swap on the later games. But I don't love the other later games, so it's a little tricky. I do like Lillard. I do like Paul George. I like Thibault. And then on the Golden State side, I think on FanDuel, Kuminga is going to show up as being like crazy chalk because the 4,100 makes a lot of sense over there. I think on DraftKings, it's just sort of like a play. I don't think it's anything special. I think that DiVincenzo is fine, but I feel like he's getting over projected. One way to get away from that might be to play like I don't know. Maybe you just don't play anything. But I actually I think Ty Jerome would be for another slate. But DiVincenzo at chalk, I think I have him on my list because the projection is just too strong. But it feels wrong, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't want to play a 25% owned DiVincenzo on this slate. But at the same time, it's hard to argue with that. He put up 47 in the last game. He definitely has a ceiling. He tends to play better when the other guys play. I don't know. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet with him or with Poole or Clay. But I certainly think that they'll be in my player pool for right now. I just don't know what I'm going to do by the end of the day with all those guys. One of those guys should have a big game here. And maybe we just keep going with Clay, considering he's back to old Clay in terms of making 6 threes plus a game. So, yeah.
I prefer Reddish to Thibault. It's an extra $1,000 though.
Yeah.
But I mean, for the reasons you said, I mean, like the low usage of Thibault is just not something I want on such a big slate. But it does, as a placeholder, it gives you a little more flexibility to move up from that. But overall, I mean, I think that those 2 Utah values are, and maybe a couple more of them are kind of tough. I mean, those are tough to not play. I mean, that's where the ball's going to be in those guys' hands. So, like those guys, I do like the Laker value as well. Those guys bringing up the ball. I like Schroeder a little more than I talked about when we first, started talking about you. You brought him up, so I went back and I looked, and definitely like that. And I have to say that maybe this is not the worst idea in the world. It's just to play the Lakers with the jaw, and then and if you play Davis, now you don't get to play, any of those studs. But you're kind of like locked in. Or you wanted to do something else. I mean, you take Davis out. The thing is, okay. So this is what I was looking at. If you put Davis back in, the bad news is the good news. So the good news is that your last spot, you have like 60 something hundred, but there's really nothing great at 6,600. I almost would rather kind of spend up, or let's just say like Jokic, and then live with a 5,100 in here or something like that, or pay up for Luka in a different position. You know what I mean? I don't think that there's such a great 6,600 that saving the money to Davis is going to be worth it. Because look, Davis is good and everything, but I mean, he doesn't nearly have the ceiling as that Jokic and Luka have. So
I agree. I agree to some extent. I do think that without LeBron, if they're going to stay close in this matchup, it's really hard for me to see him not getting like 60. That's just my personal take. If Memphis had their full team and you had Steven Adams on the other side, maybe I'd be a little bit more afraid. I actually think he's being underprojected, Anthony Davis. So I that's the one thing I would say. I like everything else, everything you're saying, and I like the build. I think I'm going to probably go a little higher to prioritize Davis, because I think with Luka, with Kyrie, with all the guys healthy for Denver, I actually think that Davis ends up in the same point range as them enough of the time. Maybe he doesn't have the same ceiling, but if he's in the same point range as them by the end of the night, like within a few points, you're playing from way ahead because you're saving 1,500, but not specifically maybe with this particular build.
So for later, I don't know whether we're going to go 6 or 6:30.
6:30, I think makes sense.
30, okay. But until then, I mean, you want to recap or?
Yeah, so I'm trying to recap. I'm just going to say, I'm going to post all my core plays on the site. As of right now, there are an unbelievably large number of them that are it's just way too much for me to even talk about. Vanderbilt, Horton Tucker, Olynyk from Utah, Beasley, Rui, and Vanderbilt. I said from Utah because he was on Utah before. Vanderbilt, Hachimura, Beasley from the Lakers, Horton Tucker, Olynyk, Vanderbilt from Utah all stand out as the most obvious values. And then as the spend ups go, like I said, because I don't have it's a great matchup for Jokic, but you do have everybody healthy for Denver. Lillard, I think Lillard and Davis might be the ways that I end up going. Although if Jokic really does end up sub 10% owned, I will be happy to switch that over to Jokic instead. But I also really like Sabonis at 9,800. Maybe a Sabonis Davis lineup might work too. Lock up that center spot with the 98 and the 10. little bit of a different type of build than most people are going to do.
All right. So we will see you guys at 6:30. Bobby, hang out there a second after I end this. Okay.
Sounds good.